This is how I found myself crying early one morning in January. For the 3 weeks I had been living in a studio apartment in Daytona Beach, FLA, I had gone running 4 times a week. On that particular day, I ran down to the beach, turning right when I hit the sand so that I would see the sun rise. The sight wasn't new, but on that day I felt so good and warm and light that, just as the sun crested over the waves, that well-worn line from Annie blasted through my mind, "The sun will come out tomorrow." And I burst into tears. In an effort to outrun more than a year of depression and grief, and the seasonal affective disorder that swamped me most winters since childhood, I had become a 37-year-old snowbird. The tears that morning were a mixture of joy and relief because, in pointing my car packed with 3 duffel bags of clothes and a box of books south for most of January and February after the worst year of my life, I had finally started to feel whole again. I hadn't for a long time. Last January, I was hit by both the death of my dog and, soon after, the forced sale of my home, which together uncorked a depression unlike anything I had ever known. Sure, I had had bouts with depression before, especially in winter. Seasonal affective disorder was first given a name in 1984 by Drive Norman E. Rosenthal and his colleagues. I was a toddler then, but even when I was in grade school I knew what it was. My father always called it baseball's off-season, saying the worst part of the year was the stretch from the final World Series game to the first day of spring training, a time when most of our 6-member family would be folded into a long, black mood. I had gone to college in Tampa, which sidestepped the issue for a little while, but as an adult, in winter, I would fold again. So I set up a double-edged solution. I would sign up for a long spring race, from 10 miles to a marathon, which meant that I was exercising, always a useful tool against depression. It also meant that I would run long miles in the middle of the day, and soak up as much sun as I could in New Jersey in January, February, and March. But this year was different. I knew that I would never get my head above water if I stuck it out through another New Jersey winter. That's why, with no pet to care for, no house to pay for and a transportable job as a freelance writer, I opted out of the season and headed south. Running still played a part in my treatment. I chose an easy running schedule to train for the Daytona Beach Half Marathon. No speed work, no hills, just plain old miles 4 days a week. On cooler for Florida days, I'd run in the late morning, my skin tanning and highlights streaking through my hair 2 weeks in. For long Saturday morning runs, I would start before dawn and watch the sunrise along with drinkers and smokers and tourists. I'm sure I ended up in the background of a lot of their photos. Every day, I drove my newly adopted dog to a dog park 1 town over, where she would run around sniffing other dogs while I turned my face to a warm, welcoming sun, then drive home humming to whatever top 40 hit was on the radio. I felt like I was a flower unfurling its petals at dawn. I started smiling again. I started flirting again. Last year I had cut a foot off my hair because I loved it and felt like I didn't deserve to be beautiful. But in Florida, I decided to grow it back out. I met a friend in Walt Disney World and skipped down Main Street in a Donald Duck sweatshirt and wanted people to look at me. I felt like myself again, sometimes cantankerous, sometimes moody, but often funny and chatty and gladly writing and running. By race day on February 4th, even though I was far off my personal record, I still grabbed my medal and a beach towel at the finish line, and celebrated with a beer and grilled cheese, then a long, hard nap, after which, even more improbably, the Philadelphia Eagles, My hometown team won the Super Bowl. This week I packed myself and the dog up to drive back to New Jersey. Without quite knowing where I will plant myself to start my life again, though my mother's spare room works for now. I don't know if I can be a snowbird every year. I assume I will eventually add rent or mortgage to the list of bills to pay. But I'm going to try, even if it's only for a week or two, for more winter sunrises, for more sunlight, and even for more why not? Joyful crying.